Feel like you're being pulled in 1,000 directions? Let's fix that. Download your free rebalancing toolkit and learn how to design an optimized week that lets you feel like you have it all. Get the goods at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all.
I'm Cherylanne Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. Hello and welcome. You are listening to episode 33 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And this is a good one today. I needed a reminder of this myself, I think. I have a new CFO at Brilliant Balance, and as we've been going through the financials in depth and looking back on the last really several years of data, it became very clear to me that while the business has grown significantly over that time, and I certainly knew that it had, there were really substantial fluctuations from month to month, some of which I had sort of forgotten as the years and months had gone by, including one month a while back, which I definitely have not forgotten. I now lovingly refer to it as the apocalypse. It was not a month that I really care to remember. And yet there was so much growth and so much personal development in realizing that you could, in fact, come through a month like that as a high growth entrepreneur. So, it doesn't really matter whether you are trying to grow a business or whether you're on a different progress curve, like maybe you're trying to get more organized, or you're trying to lose that stubborn 20 pounds, or you're really working to improve the strength of a relationship, a key relationship in your life. Any progress curve that you're on, the topic that we are going to dig into today, I think will be highly relevant for you. So here's the big idea. The big idea that we want to talk about is that progress is not linear. It doesn't come in a straight line. We want it to be. In fact, we think it will be. We expect it to be. And so when that progress is not linear, we get so frustrated that we sometimes just give up completely, in a fit of desperation. We've all been there, right? We've all had that experience of we make a decision, things are going to get better. We are going to improve on some particular vector of our life. And we begin the journey with such high hopes and high expectations and high energy. And we do make progress, sometimes very rapid progress at the beginning. And then as the curve unfolds, there are some steps backwards. Inevitably, there are some steps backwards. And yet that fact is such a mismatch with our expectations that we rail against it, emotionally. So I think instead, if we go into a progress curve, a growth curve, knowing upfront that it will not be linear, expecting that there is really no straight line from here to the finish line, then we actually have a much higher chance of staying the course through the ups and downs that are going to come. And if we look at what really gets in our way of measuring true progress, it's our emotions. Our emotions at any point in time are telling us how we feel. And we can tell you with a very high degree of accuracy how we feel at that point in time. But that is not actually a good, true measure of where we truly are. How we feel in that given moment is a snapshot, but it doesn't really effectively measure the progress that we may be making. Okay, so today I want to talk about what do you do instead? When you are on a progress curve that really matters, what do you do to make sure that you have your brain working on your side, and that you actually stay the course and continue to take the right actions so that you can ultimately get to the goal. And so we're going to talk about 3 things that you need to do in order to make sure that you really have your brain on your side. and your emotions playing the role that they're meant to play and not a bigger role than they're meant to play. So the very first thing you have to do is get the data, right? Without it, you really have nothing to measure objectively. And so you'll be highly influenced by your feelings from day to day. So whenever you're going to start a progress curve, you first want to figure out what can you measure. Maybe there's even a quantitative metric of how you feel included in this set of data, right? So you want to figure out the data, and then you want to have a place to record it. So I'm old school when it comes to this. I kind of like Excel. I grew up with Excel. It's just what makes sense to my brain. But there are other tools that are newer and really good. Something like Airtable could be an easy place to capture the data as you go. You could even use a plain old notebook. If you're really old school, you could use a notebook to record the data for your progress curve. And you want to be really vigilant about recording the data. And for some reason, we fight this. If you look around, experts in a variety of fields will tell you to track the data. Financial professionals will talk about tracking your spending or tracking your savings. Fitness professionals will tell you to track your workouts, the weights you use, the number of reps that you're doing. If you have a voice teacher, they will tell you to record how many minutes you're doing certain exercises for breathing or whatever. So it's kind of a well-known concept and yet underutilized. Okay. So you want to have a simple place to do it that's going to be in front of you every day. I'm at my computer a lot, so Excel makes a lot of sense for me. And then the critical thing is really understanding what is the data that you are going to track. What is the data that would give you a good measure of the inputs to this progress that you want to make or the outputs, right, that you're going to track? So if we're in the fitness arena, it might be the workouts, the reps that you're doing, and one of the outcomes might be your weight or your body fat percentage or measurements that you're taking, right? Just to use a simple example we can all understand. So getting the data is step one. And being pretty vigilant about recording that data in one central place so that you have something to reflect on.
Feel like you're being pulled in 1,000 directions? Let's fix that. Download your free rebalancing toolkit and learn how to design an optimized week that lets you feel like you have it all. Get the goods at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all.
The second thing that you want to do is plot a trend line. All right. If you don't know how to do this, it's really easy to learn. You can search for it in Excel, and all of those data points can be gathered into a trend line. Now, I'm going to tell you this. This might be remedial or it might be mission critical. It will only do this for quantitative measures, right? You can't plot a trend line on a qualitative measure. So you can't be in saying, I feel excellent, very good, good, not so good, right? You have to translate that to a number in order to be able to really look at the trend. So the second step is plotting the trend line. And here's the thing. If you look back on the journey, like I was talking about my business's development, it's the highs and the lows that will stand out very naturally. You won't have to think too hard about the highs and the lows, right? Even if you're thinking backwards. And in the moment, you certainly will recognize the highs and the lows, right? At the top of the cycle, when it's the best it's ever been, you will feel amazing. And at the bottom of the cycle, when you realize you've hit a dip, it's either the lowest it's ever been or the lowest it's been in a while, you'll basically feel like hot garbage, right? Neither one of those is accurate. Neither one of those feelings is a true representation of where you are, because it's the trend that matters. You can have a really great day or a really terrible day, great week, terrible week, right? And it's not going to be indicative of the progress curve that you are on. So you're going to plot these data points and then graph it, right? Plot that trend line so that you can assess what really is the progress that you're making. Okay. And that brings us to step 3, which is once you have the data and you've plotted the trend line, you want to react to the trend at regular predefined intervals. So this way, whether you're at the top or the bottom of a cycle, you don't overreact or overcorrect, right? Because that's what our emotions are going to trigger us to do. We're going to realize that we're having a really bad day. We feel really bad. Things feel really out of whack. And we are going to overreact emotionally to that feeling. Or conversely, things are going to be really good temporarily, and we're going to overreact to that sort of outlier in the system. So when you're managing the trends and you choose a regular interval, maybe it's monthly that you're going to sit down and assess the data and make adjustments. Maybe it's quarterly, right? Once that interval has been defined, you want to stay the course on the space in between. So you're measuring your data. You're doing the behaviors that you believe are in line with the progress that you want. You reach one of these intervals, and then you're going to assess, how's it going? Is the trend upward sloping, right? Is the chart moving up and to the right? Is it downward sloping? Is it flat, right? Maybe there have been lots of ups and downs, but the trend line is actually flat, right? Each one of those tells you something different. If you have your data chosen correctly and your trend line is moving up and to the right, then you are getting better. Things are getting better. It does not matter if there are ups and downs moving all around that line. As long as the trend line is moving up and to the right, you have something to celebrate. Conversely, if it is trending in the wrong direction, it's sloping down and to the right, then you are not making progress. Even if you have had a great day here and there, overall the trend is moving in the wrong direction. If it's flat, then regardless of the ups and downs that you might be wildly reacting to in the moment, things are pretty much the same as they've been before. So if you like the direction, but you don't like the steepness of the line, then you might need to pick up the pace on the activities that you're doing to make progress. If you are unhappy with the direction overall, then maybe you're not taking the right actions. Maybe the actions that you're taking you thought were going to get you results, but they're actually not. So years ago, I used to work in the health and wellness space. My first business was in the health and wellness space after I left my corporate job. And I used to use this data with people who were often trying to lose weight. And they would often come into the program saying, I eat really well. I eat really well. Eating is not the issue. I need to exercise. And we would almost always uncover that there were opportunities for them to optimize the way that they were eating. It's usually the biggest lever you can pull when you really want to be on a weight loss journey. And so what would happen is we would plot this data, and they would, at the beginning, keep eating the way they were eating. And it would be clear that the actions that they were taking around food were not, in fact, delivering the result that they wanted. And once we had that data, it was very easy for their brain to kind of get on board with behavior change, right? You might say, I don't really need a budget, or I don't really need an intentional savings plan. But if you're plotting this data and you get to the end of the first quarter and you're like, boy, this is not moving in the direction that I want, then it's going to help you get your brain on your side to make change. So these three things really are designed to get you out of the cycle of emotionally overreacting to points in time, to those highs and lows that are inevitably going to come on the journey. This system is designed to get you into the cycle of making gentle adjustments based on the data that you've collected, right? So in order for this to work, you have to have the data. And this is an important point. It has to be the right data. If you're not getting a good measure of something to actually track, you may be making progress and not be able to tell because you're not capturing the right data. So that's an important point. You need to know how to plot that trend line. And you need to know what is the slope that you want it to be on, right? How steep, how fast is it realistic for the progress to come? And then you want to be in a system of reacting to that trend at regular intervals. And we want to break the cycle of these emotional responses to a particularly bad day or a particularly good day. And I'll tell you, I've done this in a number of different arenas in my life. It's similar to journaling. It's just journaling with a little bit of data instead of something that's purely qualitative. And so what I have found to be very powerful is that when I'm having a day where the world seems to be falling apart and I'm starting to question everything I've ever believed in and done, when I can go back to the data and say, oh, look, This was predictable. Yes, this particular thing that I really care about is out of line right now, but it's temporary, right? I'm at a temporary aberration from the trend line that I am on. That is an instant, calming antidote to the flurry of craziness that you can find yourself in. And it really gets you back in the place where you're able to sustain the right behaviors. Because if those behaviors are moving your progress in the direction that you want, even if you're having an off day, you want to continue with the behaviors because you want to continue the trend line. So it just is a way to bring your behavior in line with a little bit of a longer term focus instead of reacting to those ups and downs on a day-to-day basis. Now, here's a connection. You might have kind of figured this out, but these ups and downs, all of this ups and downs, especially when we're not expecting them, can really do a number on your confidence. So the next time, that is exactly what we are going to talk about. We're going to talk about a really almost surprisingly effective strategy that you can use when you need more confidence. And most women that I have crossed paths with in my whole life would tell you they could use more confidence. So this strategy is really a good one. It's going to help you when your confidence is getting shaken by some of these ups and downs as you're making progress. I'm looking forward to that one. So that is it for today. I want you to make sure, if you haven't done so already, go grab your rebalancing toolkit at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all. And then come find us over in the Brilliant Balance Facebook group, where we will take you behind the scenes of the podcast and really start to break down some of the questions you may be having about bringing your own life into brilliant balance. I'll see you inside. Until then, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.